Welcome everybody to the Onyx Path thing. It looks like my entire screen has messed up, which is super exciting. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. It has messed up! Yay! I get to fix it I get to fix it live. Fixing it live. Fixing it live. We're just gonna fix it live. I don't know why it did that. This is my first time running tech.
That's okay. Dixie, did you change the size of your Zoom meeting thing?
I did. It's my fault entirely.
Yeah, that's what happened.
It's okay. I'm fixing it right now.
Yep.
Hi, everybody. While I fix this, my first time running tech, like I said, so y'all have to be nice to me. I am Dixie Cochran. I am an in-house developer at OnyxPath. I am in charge of the Chronicles of Darkness and Exalted, which is part of why I'm on this panel. I'm making everybody beautiful right now, live. Making it beautiful live.
Look, sometimes you just got to make everybody beautiful while live.
Yeah, and I will introduce one of our panelists. They can talk about where they're from, and then they can introduce the next panelist, et cetera, et cetera. And now I know that I can't resize Zoom once I've done this. So I will not touch my Zoom again.
I should have warned you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I've never done this before. This is
Rookie
fine.
mistakes.
Hey, it's providing entertainment for the masses. Hello, masses. Are you entertained that I made everybody into a tiny little strip? Anyway, so I am joined by Danielle Lauzon, who can introduce herself. And look, it's beautiful now. It's beautiful, and
it's beautiful.
Fixed it.
Perfect. See, super easy. Barely an inconvenience.
Not touching the Zoom again.
No. Hi, I'm Danielle Lauzon. I am the Requiem developer and also develop other books for different game lines all over Onyx Path. But for Chronicles of Darkness, I do Requiem. And I've also written on almost all of the Chronicles of Darkness lines. I think I have it written on Promethean and Deviant.
You haven't written on Deviant?
I didn't write on Deviant.
You're like our main mechanics person on Chronicles of Darkness, and we didn't have you write on Deviant. Oops.
I think maybe I was supposed to, and then I was like, oh, I can't because that was like in the before times when I was working at JWP. I don't remember though. It's been a long time. So anyway, that's me.
You gotta pass it on. You gotta pick somebody else.
I gotta pick somebody.
We're doing
Eric.
popcorn introduction.
Yes, Eric.
Popcorn introduction. I'm Eric Zawadzki. I'm the developer for the Deviant the Renegades game line. I've gotten really used to saying that because I've been running a actual play since March, April, something like that, which has been a lot of fun. I've written a bunch on Mage. I've written a ton of Demon, and little bits here for Beast, and some other stuff here and there. Turn it over to Meghan.
Hi, I'm Meghan Fitzgerald. I'm the developer for Changeling and Mage. And like Danielle, I've written on almost every Chronicles line. Which ones am I missing? Wait. Demon and Geist.
Oh, I didn't write on Geist.
Yeah. I think that, maybe Werewolf.
I still say that if you worked on Contagion Chronicle, you can say you've worked on all of them.
That's true, and actually,
and Dark Eras.
Yeah, if I count the eras, the chapters that I developed in Dark Eras, I've worked on every line.
Yeah, that's how I cheat and get around it. When I was first editing, I was like, oh, I'm the first editor to edit every Chronicles line. Or I was like, how do you figure it? I'm like, I edited the Dark Eras companion. So that counts as far as I'm concerned. There's already an argument about whether Changeling or Deviant is better, which makes me so happy because those are two of my baby books that I love.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Oh
I do get something out of the way first because it's going to come up in questions because it always comes up in questions, and that's that we're not announcing any new books right now. Not at this panel. That is still a Paradox thing. That's up to them entirely what we get to do as far as Chronicles and World of Darkness goes. So if you want to see more Onyx Path produced Chronicles books, they are the people you should tweet at. Not me, because I can't do anything about it. However, we do have other books upcoming still, like the aforementioned Deviant still working on its way out the door. It's coming out the door. So excited about that. We've got Mummy the Curse 2E on the way, which is a really, really great book developed by Matthew Dawkins. We've also got Hunter the Vigil, which is in proofing right now with one of the developers, and then I'll be doing some passes with it. We'll be getting that coming out the door. So we are going to have a bunch of new 2E books coming up pretty shortly, actually, which is nice. And then, of course, we have a couple of supplements on the way for both Mage and Changeling, which means I'm going to put Meghan on the spot a lot. And we have a couple of other supplements that were Kickstarter companions on the way for Deviant. So there's a lot going on still with Chronicles, even though it doesn't look like we haven't announced a ton of new projects. So that's something that I know people want, and I'd like to too, honestly, but we'll have to see what happens in the future. In the meantime, very, very happy to keep working on the OnyxPathCon properties, and of course Exalted, which is still piping right along. So I'm doing okay.
How you doing, Dixie?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. We released some charms for Exalted today, and I had to leave the fan Discord because it was just too much. Like just every
It was. I glance away and look back, and it's like you missed 100 messages. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's only been a minute.
I made an
Exalted.
8 brunch, and there were 100+ new messages when I came back. I'm just like, I haven't even read most of the charms yet. So.
Yeah. I was like,
But this is not the Essence panel, so we should probably.
I mean, yeah,
talk
but it's
about
like
Chronicles.
also
Yeah.
I'm like I was gonna be on stream for like 5 hours today, so the last thing I need is to try to follow that Discord. And yes, Danielle and I do have matching mugs. You can get these mugs at nerdykepi.com. If anybody would like to also be powered by Spite and coffee, and I'm assuming tea. Knowing Danielle.
Tea.
Usually
It's tea.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Chronicles of Darkness. Of course, just a brief history of those of you who might be new to it. I started out as New World of Darkness in, I think, 2004 with Vampire the Requiem.
2000.
I think it's 2004.
Ooh, hold on, let me look.
Okay,
I think it
you
came
look
out in 2005.
Okay, look up dates. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
So it started out as New World of Darkness when Paradox bought the IP and we switched over.
2004, August. So
Ha.
that's why I was thinking it was
Ha
2005.
ha ha! I'm proud of myself. But
Proud of
then of course we started doing the second edition. It became Chronicles of Darkness, just to distinguish it from World of Darkness, which makes a lot of sense to me, honestly. I kind of think they should have gone with both names in the first place, or at least 2 different names, because it was a little confusing.
We can safely blame CCP
Yeah.
for that, and no one should be able to come at us because they don't own it anymore.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Go yell about
blame it all.
it in EVE Online.
Yes.
Go make an EVE online account and yell about it. Yeah, so Chronicles comprises a shit ton of game lines. There's, of course, the baseline Chronicles where you're going to be playing mortals. You can do some little supernatural stuff in there, a little bit of fun digging around, more like a haunted house story type thing. And then I'm not going to even try to list all of them because I'll forget one. But of course, it has all the basic World of Darkness splats reimagined. So vampire, werewolf, changeling, demon, hunter, mummy,
Geist.
which is kind of Wraith. Like that's one of the only ones that doesn't have a 1-to-1 name. And then of course it expanded with Promethean, with our upcoming Deviant, with Beast. Yeah, so there are a lot of games in Chronicles of Darkness.
Oh, you said Promethean.
I said
sorry.
Promethean.
I think you've named them all accurately.
I'm actually really proud of myself then, because that's hard to do. I remember when I got this job and Rich was like, "You're in charge of 13 game lines," and I was like, "Okay." I was like, Matthew's only got like 3 active ones. But it turns out that Chronicles is really easy because all of the devs that do Chronicles know what the hell they're doing. So I just pay them, mostly. Yeah, so we do want some. Let's go ahead and start with the oldest release that still has new things coming up, which is Changeling. We have The Hedge and Kith and Kin on their way.
Yes.
And also a novella collection, which is very exciting. That's in editing right now. Do you want to talk a little bit, Meghan, about those 2 books and what they contain? I know we've previewed some kiths recently, because you've been so wonderful about sending us kiths from that book to preview in our streams. Tom Muir is in the chat right now, and he ran the Arthurian game yesterday,
cool.
where they used all new kiths. So they had a Draconic and a Riddle Seeker and a Chevalier and a Bearskin. And then I've been playing a Spiel build in our modern day Berlin set game. So that's been super, super, super fun. So yeah, Meghan, what's in these upcoming books? Let's get a couple spoilers. Well,
Okay.
Somebody yesterday asked what the Hedge was all about, and I was like, wait till the Chronicles panel because
I mean,
it's
it's
about the Hedge.
Hedge.
That's what I said.
Sure. Okay. So originally during the Kickstarter, Kith and Kin, we added kind of groups of themed groups of kiths to the book.
Mm-hmm.
But the kiths are not all that's in the book. So it's actually just one chapter. It is almost the biggest chapter. The only chapter bigger than that is the contracts chapter, because they're contracts and they take up a lot of space. But so chapter 1 talks about all of the strange ways that you can come back from Arcadia that aren't normal, that aren't like, you know, I came back in my hometown at the same time I left or whatever.
Oh yeah, like my character in our spray park game is like 30 years out of time.
Nice.
Like, so she has a, like, she disappeared in the, like, late 80s, and she has a doppelganger now who's, like, 65. Like, her, like, fetch is an old lady, and she's,
That's
like, my
awesome.
age. So, yeah, no, that is a very cool thing that I love playing around with in Changeling.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have that in that chapter, how to, you know, if you come back years later, or you come back during your lifetime but in the past, or you come back before your lifetime in the past.
That's an option?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I want to play, like, Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court Changelings now.
You totally can. But there's also stuff like coming back in space. And so
I hear no one can hear you scream there.
I don't know. The true fae can probably hear you scream.
I was going to say, the Gentry would like to test that theory.
So there's a whole big section about the hedge in space, because the hedge doesn't care about planetary boundaries. And yeah, so the biggest thing there that I really love is the wishing roads, and I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to spoil the name and let you think about it. But
that's all in Kith and Kin?
Yeah, that's in chapter 1.
How big is this book, Megan?
No, that's just a section of chapter 1. No, and then chapter 2 is the one that's got the contracts in it, but it's really about regalia. Mm-hmm. So it's about adding regalia to the game, other than the 6 core ones that are in the book. And they're really just less common than the ones in the book. It's not like, oh,
I wrote
dancing.
some of them.
Oh, okay.
That's true. Danielle wrote some.
I just thought you were dancing. Yeah. I thought we were having a good time.
No, I'm excited about them because I wrote some of them.
Yes. Which ones you wrote? Chalice?
Oh man, that was. I've slept since then.
Just seem.
I hope we've all slept since then.
I know you definitely wrote Chalice. I don't remember.
I wrote. I think I wrote one that was like.
Oh, Scepter. You wrote Chalice and Scepter.
Yes, that's right. I was like,
anyways,
there was a leadership one, but I don't remember what I called it.
Yeah. And then, so yeah, there's new regalia, and then talking about lost regalia, how you know, maybe find one and bring it back, or find an old agreement or something that the True Fae made and create your own. And there's also some new contracts that are independent of regalia. Mm-hmm. And then chapter 3 is the big Kiths chapter, and it's just full with nothing but Kiths. And then, let's see. Chapter 4 is about it's about the motley, pretty much, in general. There's some stuff in there about having people in your motley that aren't changelings.
I also wrote that.
Yes, Danielle also wrote that.
Would they be mostly other supernaturals, or do you mean even like mortals?
Both. Yes.
Excellent.
And just some stuff about handling, like creating the motley at the beginning of the Chronicle and stuff like that. But yeah, mortals, Fae touched, even goblins, I think, are in there. And then there's a section about crossover with the other Chronicles games. And then, no, that's it. Okay, so that's it. That's what's in Kith and Kin.
Tom did want to know if there'll be more info about the mirror space, that weird space where some of us go.
There will, but in the hedge book.
So let's talk about the hedge book. What's coming up in that?
Let's talk about the hedge book. It is all about the hedge. It's basically a setting book for running games in the hedge, or running, maybe not whole games, but maybe. Running the hedge as a place to go, because, you know, we could only fit so much in the core about the hedge, and there's so much potential in there. And we really wanted, when Rose and I started out, we really wanted to encourage players and characters to want to go to the hedge, because it's our big otherworld space in Changeling, and we really wanted to utilize it as as much as we could. So the first chapter of Hedge is about journeying into the hedge, the actual journey itself. It's got a system for, if anybody remembers Damnation City, it had those like how to build a place. We've adapted that for the hedge, so that you can build hedge locations, places to do things on.
I love hanging out in the hedge when I play Changeling. It's just it's fun because you get to look really weird, which is cool. I mean, my last character was a Darkling, so she was kind of creepy anyway. But then she was in the hedge, and she has goblin contracts and shit, and she's like, "Yep, I'm weird. Like I'm just gonna be weird here." And it was really really fun. Like I love hanging out in the hedge.
Yeah.
Damnation City gets name checked a lot for some of these styles of books because it's such a good example of what to do.
So good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to mention it again when we get to Tome.
Yeah. Well, when I did Building a Legend for Beast, this is the model you're going to use. I'm like, okay, this is great. This is a great model. Okay. And I think we did it again for Home and Pentacle.
But yeah.
So it's been a little while since I turned that in, so I've already forgotten everything I've written for it. That's the way it goes.
That's actually a really fun fact, is that if you ask a lot of the folks over at even Paradox, a lot of them will say that Damnation City is one of the best vampire books. And it's a Requiem book, which I think is super, super cool that they cite that a lot for V5 inspiration. And you can really see it in Chicago by Night. And you can really see like little bits of it here and there throughout the V5 core, where it's like, oh, okay, they just took a Requiem book, but okay, it was a really good book, and like everybody wants to use it for city building.
I mean, it's got good stuff in it. So
yeah, it's really good. So yeah, we've got that. We've got how to run weird stuff like seasons. How do seasons work in the hedge? How does time work in the hedge? Different kinds of weird environments you can find there, that kind of thing. And so then chapter 2 is kind of an expansion of a couple of specific locations, and Mirror Space is one of them. So it's a whole setting that you can use for a game. Then we have a chapter on hedge sorcery, and then so hedge sorcery is a specific magic that you can only use in the hedge, that's inspired by the witch archetype in fairy tales. So it's how we get that kind of Eye of Newt, wing of bat. Sorry, Dixie. No, we're not pulling any wings off bats.
Ethically sourced.
Ethically sourced wing of bat. I like it. Only bats who die a natural death of natural causes have their wings used in spells.
Yes. So yeah, it's how we get that kind of magic into Changeling. And let's see. Chapter 4 is all about goblin stuff other than actual goblins. So goblin markets, goblin debt, how goblin queens fit into the setting, all that kind of stuff. Chapter 5 is all about the Dreaming Roads. So that's a section of the hedge that's it is part of the hedge, but it's also weird because they theorize that it didn't always belong to the hedge. And so I wanted a whole chapter that's just that as a setting, and cool stuff you can do there. And then chapter 6 is all NPCs. So there's just more hedge, just a ton more hobgoblins and hedge ghosts and some entitlements. There are some more example entitlements in there. And a new kind of antagonist called the Weird Swarm, which are pretty much changelings who tried to cheat the weird and fucked up. Like transgressors against the weird, basically.
Nice.
Yeah, they fucked around and found out, and now they're antagonists, and they kind of sold their souls to the weird. So that's what that is.
I love that. That's very, very cool. Yeah, so we do have a couple of questions that are still unchanged. Like, I'll go ahead and ask, and then we'll move to a different topic. So somebody asked, was it hedge spinning meant to be sort of a free-form magic type thing in the first place? And I think from what you just said, that hedge spinning and hedge sorcery are very different.
Yes, they are very different.
Yeah, so it's not the same thing. It's a different sort of thing that you'll have to wait to see. Somebody else asked, will tail crafting return at some point?
It will not.
It will not. It's gone. We got rid of it.
It's because we changed what the weird really is. So the idea, like, it doesn't represent quite the same thing that it represented in first edition, and so tail crafting just doesn't really fit.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, things change through editions. It's a thing that happens. That's why you make new editions. And then somebody else, again, asked, if we're gonna get some ready-made huntsmen?
Yes, we are.
Cool.
Think.
That's good to know.
Yes.
I want to move on a little bit, talk to Danielle and whoever else worked on it, because I don't know who worked on what, about Contagion Chronicle, and specifically, somebody's already asked about the player's guide.
Yay!
Which is just what's in it. And I know the answer to that because I love kind of how we did it.
Yeah.
But I think that you could probably explain that better.
Yeah, and I mean, without revealing like exactly what it says, I can pretty much tell you what's in it. So we approached Player's Guide to the Contagion Chronicle as kind of a non-definitive crossover guide. And so a lot of the first part of it is kind of an FAQ, where there's some reconciliation of mechanics across all the game lines. So, how does, how do clashes work? How does aura reading work? How does willpower work? How do these things work in ways that and essentially it's, can I do X thing? Here's the answer. What does this do? Here's the answer. So it's kind of set up as a question answer section at the very beginning of things that I know that I have to think about when I'm running any kind of crossover, even before the Contagion Chronicle. And so we're like, okay, these are the most pertinent things that, what happens when a vampire feeds on a non-mortal, or a mortal plus, what happens? Is that weird? In first edition it was, and then we kind of took it out in second edition, and then we're like, but it's fun, so let's talk about it. So we have some optional rules also for how to handle stuff like that. We also talk about how different creatures, I say creatures, supernatural creatures, interact with things like what happens when vampires go in the hedge. What happens when werewolves go into the underworld, right? What happens? And we talk about that a little bit and discuss how to handle that mechanically. Mm-hmm. And then we have a very, very, very large section that is, how do Mage Arcana work?
I wrote that one.
It's literally like a third of the book.
Oh my God, are you serious?
It's not a very big book.
It's not a very big book. It's not a very big book, but yeah, it's like 25 pages, 26 pages. It's not a huge book.
We're all Mage Awakening vets here. Danielle and I started at the same time on
yeah,
Awakening,
I did.
It tends to eat things.
But essentially, it's this really honestly, Megan, you did a very awesome job of doing a breakdown of how do Mage Arcana interact with each of the different supernatural creature types, and so it's broken down by. Here's, Mage Arcana, and then it's like, okay, how do they work on vampires? How do they work on werewolves? How do they work on Prometheans? How do they work on, because people want to know, like, oh, well, I have death. Can I manipulate a vampire? Oh, I have spirit. Can I take over a werewolf's? Oh yeah. Can I affect a Sin Eater? Can I take over?
Can I steal their geist?
Yeah.
No,
can I do things with, werewolf fetishes? Can I, whatever, right? So there's a lot of like, here it is by type, and here's what they can and can't do, and what you maybe would allow as the as a storyteller, like here's some things. And then we have a section on making mixed groups, doing shared merits. So, we open up all the shared merits from each splat. Like, how do you get that shared merit with the other, right? Like, so can, how do hollows work and how do hollows work? And can they be the same thing?
Right.
So all of that kind of stuff, we give optional mechanics, and we give some new merits that are shared merits, and we give some new ways to talk about, like, if you want status in all the different like social groups, how to handle stuff like that. So it's just some mechanical support. Of course, all of it is optional. You don't have, it's not, that's why I say it's like definitive, not definitive, because we give a lot of suggestions. If I were running this, if this is how I would do it from a mechanical standpoint, here's how I would handle it. But it's not necessarily set in stone. If you want to not allow vampires to get hunter tactics, then don't. But we give ways to allow that to happen. So
yeah, it's one of the things where, like, we're talking about kind of how to make that book, because obviously, like, Contagion Chronicle tells you how to play Contagion Chronicle on some level. We have all these questions that people we knew were going to ask, just and we're already asking, like, on the Kickstarter, going like, how does this affect this? And it's like, okay, yes, there's a reason we made new splats for Contagion to make it a little easier, but also I understand you want to use your cool mage powers.
Yeah, and I mean, ever since Masquerade, ever since there was, the storyteller, both those systems kind of look similar across all the game lines, and we did a lot in second edition to smooth them out across all of the different game lines. And so now it's even easier to have, these different character creature types interacting with one another. But then you do run into these questions of, like, are mages gods? And, it's like, well, I mean, no, they're not. And they don't win at everything all the time. That's just not true. So how do you adjudicate those things? Are, I know that I have gotten into lots of arguments with people about that kind of thing in the past as a fan. So I'm certain that there are people who are like, I really need this so that people at my table will quit yelling at each other. So I appreciate and come from a place where I understand that this is a thing that's happening.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's just nice to have a little guide on how to adjudicate that stuff, because it's like, maybe some mages could mess with a geist, but maybe that's not nice to do to your friend.
Right.
So we're talking about newer stuff. Eric, I know we're on the cusp of Deviant's rising right now. So how's that going? How are you feeling about that? You want to talk a little bit about the game line?
I'm ready for it to be out. Quite honestly,
that's everybody with everybody.
I know. I'm ready for a physical book, even though, like, the PDF is great, but, like, the current version of the PDF I have, it immediately opens all my comments and, like, edits and page XXs, and so I'm looking forward to having a PDF that doesn't have that. But no, I'm really excited that that's about to come out. It looks like, we've just got a few more steps going on there, but my work on that is done. But got Clades and Devoted Companions on their way. I'm super excited about that. Clades Companion just opens up so many weird concepts of character concepts.
Because Deviant didn't have enough weird character concepts.
Oh, I know, but, like, my playtest group, my normal tabletop group, when we did a playtest, they immediately managed to, like, latch on to concepts. I'm like, there's not technically a way of doing that in Deviant yet, and realized that they were forms. So we have the uplift form, which is if you want to play an animal or a person in an animal body, what does it matter? Like, how does that anatomy work mechanically?
I like that you have the language from Pugmire that you just slid into Deviant. You're like, oh, they're uplifted.
Uplift is actually an older term than that. But
I know. It's
I've
just
encountered
funny
it
to me.
elsewhere. But yeah, but no, that's really
Deviant.
what it is.
Deviant is pre-Pugmire, is all I'm saying. It's canon now.
I know Eddie and I have had a couple exchanges regarding that. And like, oh yeah, they're actually cybernetic, and okay, I didn't know that. Okay, but but yeah, like, uplifts are if you want to play an animal, and the automaton form is if you want to play something that isn't humanoid but isn't an animal. So if you want to play, I don't know, a talking car, a singing sword, um, a talking tank, although that's a little extreme, but with Tachikomis from Standalone Complex,
Mm-hmm.
the like cute little lovable tanks who are curious and friendly, and they're also tanks. That sort of stuff like is a sort of it's fun. But the core mechanics the core rules didn't have that available. The other one is Myriad, which is if you play something that doesn't just have one body, or death is not the end.
Right.
Whether that means they have a clone line that you kill one of them and they just haul the next clone off the line, put the memories in, and off they go, or an android,
Mm-hmm.
same sort of thing. Killing them does not get rid of them. Or whether it's like someone who just is a like a serial body thief, where you kill them and they just bystander and possess their body and take it over, and now that they're that person. Those are two different flavors of the Myriad form.
That's cool.
That was the very first character that immediately broke. The actual play was exactly that. Someone wanted to play a body swapping grandmother, and over the course of 5 or 6 sessions, I think stole like 5 people's bodies, kept just going from person to person to person, and like leaving. And then we decided that the way it worked in his case, because every rule system has like sort of assumptions, but
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to leave some of the assumptions up in the air so that storytellers can decide and the troupe in general can decide what's best for their specific game.
Mm-hmm.
And what we decided was best in this case was that when she swaps bodies, the consciousness of the person she's stealing goes into the body she currently occupies, and so she's leaving a trail of displaced people. So we had a joke that
That's
she
horrible.
That's awesome.
That's
so
horrifying
good.
and wonderful.
I love
I
it.
know it was like, okay, this is perfect. We're like, yeah, there's probably a support group for people who've been displaced by this character, like the nurse who's now in the body of an old grandmother, the new father who's now in the body of the nurse. I mean, it just went on. Like I said, it was only a few sessions long, but she like did this a lot because it was a good way of slipping out of people's slipping the noose when people were chasing her. But yeah, it was great. It was a great character concept. But Myriad makes it a lot easier to do.
That's awesome.
And then there's the Outsider, which is everything from that android who doesn't really understand people but may eventually. E.T. the extraterrestrial, any kind of alien where they're here, they can't leave, and there are people hunting them.
Mm-hmm.
And the environment in some way is toxic or hostile to them. That's not every story involving extraterrestrials is a deviant story, but some extraterrestrial stories are definitely deviant stories. E.T. being like exhibit A on that.
Right.
But so outside, you having like an angel or whatever possessing a body and it gets stuck there for whatever an inexplicable reason, and has to live as a human. I'm thinking of The Golem and the Djinn. It was a book. I can't remember the name of the author. But it basically just followed the lives of a golem and a djinn who'd been trapped in a physical form, who were just sort of making their way in turn of the 20th century New York City. And it was just a really fascinating sort of, they're fish out of water, but they're both fish out of water. So they kind of have a friendship based on that. But so much stuff in Clades. And the forms are like the one that I talk about a lot, ephemeral entities. Unlike a lot of the other Chronicles games, Deviant doesn't have just a one like favorite setting for ephemeral places or other worlds. It's very toolbox, often Deviant specific. Like if you pick up otherworldly connection, astral realms, you're gonna have a different kind of character than one that picks up otherworldly connection. I don't know. hedge or otherworldly connection, underworld. There's just very different feels of character. But it talks a little bit about it provides the ephemeral engineers rules. It explains like how to build them using. We got this toolkit approach in the game. It's very, very easy to sort of port that kind of concepting over into to expand just about anything. So we do play around with a lot with the ephemeral entities. Someone's apparently very excited about aliens. So,
that's good.
One of the ones that I was like, I didn't want to like reveal too early in the Kickstarter because I hadn't been that really officially approved yet. But yeah, that's aliens are fun. We have stuff on gear, prototype equipment. So stuff that like mimics, again, using the toolbox approach of the entire game, mimics certain types of variations, often by applying a scar to the person using it. It's a sword that requires you to use charge it with your willpower. Hey, it's just a magnitude 3 variation attached to a weapon, or it is the weapon. It's a lash. So just all sorts of fun stuff like that. It very like I said, just lets you play all the weird stuff.
That's awesome.
Not that you can't play weird stuff in the base, but like even more weird stuff.
I think that's what people want Deviant for, though, right? Just weird shit.
Oh gosh, yeah. People like it's the most fun watching the Discords and watching people like talk about like how do I build this really exotic character in a very strange anime or something that I've never seen. And I just kind of watch when people let someone knows it, someone recognizes what they're talking about, and immediately is like, "Hey, you can add power failure to this thing, and like use these variations, and it's probably going to be this clade." And I'm like, "Okay, you guys got this. You grokked how to think about a character for taking a concept and applying mechanics to the concept."
Now, I know you get excited. We only have about 18 minutes left, so if you want to go over Devoted real quick so we can touch on Mage and answer a couple of questions, that would be
Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I forgot Mage didn't get touched yet. Devoted Companion, I get very excited.
I know, and that's great when we have unlimited time.
We don't have unlimited time.
But we do not have that right now. And also, I want to watch the Essence game at 1.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Okay. So Devoted Companion...
I'm on the Essence game at 1, so I have a hard out.
Right.
Or 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
2.
Okay.
One for you, 2 for me.
If Clade's Companion is about playing weirder characters, Devoted Companion is about playing a very different style or approach to the game. First of all, you're going to have a lot more characters who are devoted instead of deviants. And how do you play that? I mean, there's a lot of different styles of play that range from... we basically added like 2 axes. You have one axis that is basically how free you are. You basically get your orders and you just do what you're told, or do you have basically do whatever you want as long as it furthers the conspiracy's goals, or somewhere in between.
Right.
So that's one axis, and then the other one is like how much of a force for good are you and your conspiracy? Because conspiracies range from, oh my God, these guys are so evil, to they mean well, but they still attract some not very great characters.
Right.
But at least you don't have to play, the darkest of all dark characters in order to play Devoted. You can play a little less gray, even heroic characters. I mean, it's not a superhero game, but you can play characters that are actually a force for at least their perception of good. X-Men is one that I think about. If you think about the X-Men as a conspiracy, it's led by the deviants. It's controlled by a deviant. It furthers certain aims of the deviants, but it also has to resort to violence quite often, and has its consequences. There's some questionable elements of their philosophy is not flawless. Sometimes they accidentally make villains instead of heroes. Very cool. So that's on the brighter side of that axis. Also, we get to delve into more about conspiracy mechanics. Exactly what can you do with a conspiracy action? What can you do as a project? How do you make it so that you can include both conspiracies that are just trying to make their first or they're trying to make their second deviant. They succeeded once.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to make their second one. And then also have conspiracies that are at least attempting to do some sort of assembly line. I mean, having just different ranges of that and mechanics around that. Especially since your characters, if you're devoted, you may have some control over those experiments. And so now you are participating in that, in the hubris of mankind.
Super cool. I like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about both of those, and looking forward to being able to show off more of it.
All right. So Megan, you talk a little bit about Tome of the Pentacle. What's going on with some mage action?
Mage action.
Mage
sure.
action.
So Tome is. So in first edition, there was Tome of the Watchtowers, which was the book about paths, and this one is a book about how the pentacle works together. So, and also in first edition, we had the, individual order books. So this is not going to delve into individual orders. It's really more about how all of the pentacle orders work together as an organization. But it's also a big setting book. So it's got, the first chapter is nothing but the history of magic. It's mage history as far back as we can take it. But specifically pentacle. So the pentacle history. From its founding to the present. And then the second chapter is a setting chapter where there's kind of a global overview of what the pentacle looks like on the planet. But then it drills down into a bunch of specific cities, a bunch of specific concilia, which is where the Damnation City thing comes in, because we use that as kind of a base for how to present those. And then chapter 3 is Pentacle Relations. So kind of like the international relations chapter, but for mages. It's kind of just how they communicate with each other, what diplomacy looks like, what travel looks like, mage trade, stuff like that. And then how to run a convocation, because we really don't have that anywhere in second edition, printed. And then we have factions. So in the order books in first edition, there were a lot of smaller factions within each order that all had kind of varying philosophies, variations on the order philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're bringing those back and then introducing some new ones. And then there's an expanded dual arcane, because the dual arcane that's in the core is just very simple, because it, if you don't want to spend like an entire session on nothing but a dual arcane, then you just use the quick and simple version.
Right.
But in here we gave a big expanded version of it so that if you want to spend a lot of time really delving into the dual arcane, you can. And then chapter 4 is the storyteller's chapter, how to run the pentacle. And then chapter 5 is the New York setting. I think Dave has mentioned in the past that New York was intended to kind of be one of the big settings for second edition Mage.
Mm-hmm.
Here we're covering New York in its entirety, so that you can run a game there.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So exciting. Oh, and Bernie's dancing again. So I guess Danielle wrote something. No, Danielle's just excited and muted.
I like to be excited, okay?
I'm always excited. So we're about 10 minutes left-ish, because I want to just duck out of here when we can to get Danielle to her game. But does anybody have any other questions? There was kind of a fun question, so I'll do a little round robin on this one. And that was, if it, like, what would we do if we were doing a 12th Chronicles book? This is entirely speculative, because nothing has been pitched or approved. So this is just a thing we'd like to do. And even though Eric just said something about it in his thing, I always say aliens or like sea creatures are the two things I feel like we haven't really explored as much as we could. Anybody else have any cool ideas? It's okay if you don't.
No. I like aliens.
I like aliens.
Sci-fi, like that's not really a new splat, but like as far as places that we haven't really been taking the Chronicles of Darkness into various future forms, could be a lot of fun. I know that they did.
For like shards? or mirrors.
Yeah, there was. I think there was. Yeah, I remember. I can't remember which book it was offhand. But
It's World of Darkness Mirrors, where they have the like space opera and
Yeah.
all the other ones. And then Danielle did space opera vampires, didn't you?
Um,
Wasn't there space vampires in one of the books?
yes, there is in Storyteller's Guide to Requiem. So I think that's what it's called, Guide to the Night.
Guide to the Night. That's what it was.
Yeah, Guide to the Night. There's some space vampire, like what happens if, the vampires have to live on a space station.
Yeah.
And this is a whole chronicle about it, and it's very cool.
I'm sorry, Hot Dog Wizard. I don't think you'll be making Hot Dog Wizard into a Chronicle splat, even though you want to see anthropomorphic process meets with magical abilities. Could be a fun storyteller's vault project, I guess.
I do classify that as horror.
Yeah, no, if there were like a walking, talking hot dog that could cause magic, I'd be terrified.
There's definitely horror there.
Someone earlier, by the way, I meant to get to this, asked what the status of Werewolf the Forsaken was. We don't have anything in the works right now for it, because once again, that's a paradox question. We'd love to make as many books as we can make. That's really all we can say about it.
I like making books.
I also like making books, but also for a lot of stuff, like if you're talking about like a hypothetical false plot, things like that, because we are a different company, we're OnyxPath Publishing, not Paradox. We're focusing a lot of our energy on new on StoryPath games. So a lot of things are going in through Trinity, through Scion, through other story paths, things that we might do in the future, they came from, etc. That's where a lot of our energy is going as a company right now, because I mean we own those and we would like to keep doing more of them. I think we're having some really, really cool stuff coming out for like Trinity, for instance, in the near future, and who knows where that could go, because Trinity is a continuum, so you can do pretty much anything with it. Maybe we'll take our cool alien ideas for Sea of the Aliens and just make a dark, scary Trinity game. Who knows? But yeah, does anybody... Oh, apparently Ian's just answering all the great questions, which is great. Thank you for being in the chat, Ian. If anybody else has any questions, let me know. We're hanging out. Otherwise, we can just do our sign off and slightly early, which will make Danielle happy because she'll have a chance to go refresh her drink. What did you just do?
I lost one of my earbuds.
Oh.
So now it's only coming in through one ear.
Oh, okay. It looked horrifying whenever it was going on.
It was horrifying to me.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and do this part. And if any questions come up during it, we can answer them at the very end. So, Eric, if people want to find you, follow you, talk to you about Deviant, which you will happily talk about for 3 hours at length, where can they do that?
You're pretty safe to catch me on either the official Discord or on the fan Deviant Discord. I am on there a lot. And I just love talking about the game, and I love like coming up with ideas for it. Mm-hmm. I'm also on Twitter at Four Moons Press for the FOUR Moons Press, and that's really my stick right now. So
cool. Megan?
I too am usually on Discord, so you can find me in the official Discord or any of the Chronicles fan Discords. That's probably the easiest place. I'm blanking on my Twitter handle right now.
It's under your name on the screen. It's
good. Yes, it's Big. Thank you.
It's whatever that says.
Okay, yeah, and I'm on Twitter, so you can follow me there.
I actually went and looked it up for this because I had also forgotten. So
everybody could tell that Megan uses Twitter a lot.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
Danielle?
You can find me at daniellelauzon.com, where I have a list of all my works, and I sometimes update that website for appearances, of which there are none because of the Panini. And
I mean, you're at OnyxPathCon right now.
Yes,
God.
I am appearing.
You can be perceived.
Perceive me. You can also find me at Twitter, whatever that says. And then I am also in the Discord.
Pretty sure it says Impernious.
It does, yes. My age-old handle, which I will never change. And I'm in the Discord sometimes and answering questions and poking around. So you can sometimes catch me there, and sometimes not. It's just I'm an ephemeral being spending too much time trolling the Essence channel.
I mean, that's where we all are. My
I'm-
name's good.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fun place to troll. My name's Dixie Cochran, and as developer at OnyxPath Publishing. You can find me all over the internet and on lots of Discords at Dixie Cyanide, except for on the Exalted Discord where I just change my name constantly. I am currently a white in darkness, all undercaps. That's not a word. Lowercase. Lowercase is the word. Undercaps is way cooler sounding though, and I'm gonna start using it.
That's what you do whenever you hang out under mushrooms.
Yeah. It's a changeling thing.
It's a hedge thing. We're
Yeah.
gonna add it.
Yeah,
Undercaps.
undercaps. You got to hear me on the OnyxPathCast every Friday at noon. And with that said, I'm going to do the thing I always do where I try not to sign off by saying many worlds, one pathcast.
Bye.
Nah.